On the early morning of March 18, 1990, a daring theft occurred at the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum in Boston. 13 valuable works of art were taken during this audacious heist. The perpetrators gained entry by posing as police officers responding to a disturbance call, and they managed to subdue the museum guards before making off with their ill-gotten treasures. Shockingly, this high-profile case remains unsolved to this day, with no arrests made and none of the stolen artworks recovered. The FBI and art dealers estimate the value of the stolen pieces to be in the hundreds of millions of dollars, making it one of the most significant art thefts in history. In a bid to recover the stolen art, the museum has offered a remarkable $10 million reward, marking the most substantial bounty ever provided by a private institution. These stolen works were originally collected by the museum's founder, Isabella Stewart Gardner, 1840 to 1924. With the intention of displaying them permanently alongside her extensive collection. Among the stolen masterpieces was The Concert, a rare painting by Johannes Vermeer, one of only 34 known to exist, and considered the most valuable unrecovered painting globally. Also missing was The Storm on the Sea of Galilee, Rembrandt's only seascape, along with several other valuable paintings and sketches by renowned artists such as Rembrandt, Edgar Degas, Edward Manet, and Govert Flinck. Surprisingly, the thieves overlooked more valuable artworks, leaving experts puzzled by their choices. As the museum's collection and its layout were intended to remain constant, empty frames now hang in homage to the missing works, serving as placeholders in anticipation of their return. The FBI believes that the heist was carefully orchestrated by a criminal organization. However, the case lacks substantial physical evidence, and the FBI has relied on interrogations, undercover informants, and sting operations to gather information. Their primary focus has been on the Boston Mafia, which was embroiled in an internal gang war at the time. Some theories suggest that gangster Bobby Donati may have orchestrated the theft to negotiate for his Capo regime's release from prison, but Donati was murdered a year after the robbery. Other accounts point to a gang in Boston's Dorchester neighborhood, though the suspects involved deny any involvement, despite a sting operation resulting in several prison sentences. All potential leads have proven fruitless, with those questioned either denying knowledge or failing to provide information leading to the recovery of the stolen artworks, even with the promise of reward money and reduced prison sentences. The Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum was established under the visionary guidance of Isabella Stewart Gardner herself, 1840 to 1924, to serve as the permanent home for her remarkable art collection. The museum first opened its doors to the public in 1903, and Gardner continued to enhance and arrange the collection until her passing in 1924. In her will, she left the museum with a generous $3.6 million endowment and stipulated that the arrangement of the artwork should remain unaltered, and no items were to be sold from or added to the collection. By the 1980s, the museum faced severe financial challenges that had a detrimental impact on its overall condition. The institution lacked the necessary funds to maintain a climate control system, secure an insurance policy, and carry out basic building maintenance. In 1982, the FBI uncovered a plot by local Boston criminals to rob the museum, prompting the allocation of funds to bolster security measures. To enhance security, the museum introduced several improvements. These included the installation of 60 infrared motion detectors and the establishment of a closed-circuit television system with 4 cameras placed strategically around the museum's perimeter. However, no cameras were positioned inside the museum due to concerns about the associated costs, although additional security personnel were hired. Despite these enhancements, the only means for guards to contact the police in case of an emergency was by pressing a button at the security desk. Other museums in the area had fail-safe systems that required night watchmen to make hourly phone calls to the police to confirm that everything was normal. In 1988, an independent security consultant evaluated the museum's security operations and found them to be in line with standard practices but recommended further enhancements. The security director at the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston also proposed security upgrades for the museum. However, due to the museum's financial constraints and Gardner's stipulation against major renovations, the Board of Trustees did not approve these security improvements. The board also rejected a request from the security director for higher guard salaries to attract more qualified applicants. Museum guards were compensated slightly above minimum wage, and the museum's security deficiencies were widely known among the staff. The fateful robbery occurred in the early hours of Sunday, March 18, 1990. The two perpetrators, disguised as police officers, were first spotted at around 12:30 a.m. by revelers leaving a St. Patrick's Day party near the museum. They parked a hatchback about 100 feet from the side entrance, and the witnesses mistook them for real police officers. That night, the museum was staffed by two guards, Rick Abath, 23 years old, and Randy Heston, 25 years old. Abath was a regular night watchman, but March 18 marked Heston's first night shift. The museum's security protocol dictated that one guard would conduct gallery patrols with a flashlight and a walkie-talkie, while the other would remain at the security desk. When Abath embarked on his patrol, fire alarms activated in several rooms, but he was unable to locate any signs of fire or smoke. He returned to the security room, where the fire alarm control panel indicated smoke in multiple rooms. Assuming it was a malfunction, he deactivated the panel and continued his rounds. During his patrol, before completing it, Abath briefly opened the side entrance door and then shut it without informing Heston. Subsequently, he returned to the security desk around 1 a.m., at which point Heston took over patrol duties. At 1:20 a.m., the thieves arrived at the side entrance of the museum. They parked their vehicle and proceeded to the side door, where they rang the buzzer, establishing an intercom connection with Abath, the on-duty guard. Identifying themselves as police officers investigating a disturbance, they requested entry. Abath could observe them on the closed-circuit television, dressed in what appeared to be police uniforms. While he had no knowledge of any disturbance, he speculated that a St. Patrick's Day reveler might have scaled the fence, prompting a police report. As a result, Abath granted them access at 1:24 a.m. Upon entry, the thieves first entered a secured foyer area, which separated the side door from the main museum space. They approached Abath at the security desk and inquired if anyone else was present in the museum. Abath radioed Heston to return to the security desk. It was around this time that Abath noticed the taller man's mustache appeared to be artificial. The shorter thief informed Abath that he looked familiar and suggested that there might be an arrest warrant for him. He demanded that Abath step out from behind the desk to provide identification. Abath complied, relinquishing the security desk, which contained the museum's sole panic button for alerting the police. The shorter thief then forcibly pressed Abath against a wall, separated his legs, and handcuffed him. Heston walked into the room at this point, and the taller thief directed him to face the wall and handcuffed him as well. With both guards now handcuffed, the thieves revealed their true intent to rob the museum and cautioned the guards not to create any issues. The thieves proceeded to wrap duct tape around the heads and eyes of the guards. Without seeking directions, they led the guards into the basement, where they were handcuffed to a steam pipe and workbench. The thieves examined the guards' wallets and issued threats, claiming that they knew the guards' home addresses. They warned that if the guards refrained from alerting the authorities, they would receive a reward approximately a year later. The thieves managed to subdue the guards in less than 15 minutes, completing this at about 1:35 a.m. The movements of the thieves within the museum were tracked by infrared motion detectors. Interestingly, the detectors did not record their presence in the first room they entered, the Dutch room on the second floor, until 1:48 a.m. This was roughly 13 minutes after they had subdued the guards, possibly indicating a delay to ensure that the police had not been alerted. As the thieves approached the paintings in the Dutch room, a sensor designed to detect when patrons approached the artwork was triggered, prompting an alarm. In response, the thieves damaged the sensor. They removed The Storm on the Sea of Galilee and A Lady and Gentleman in Black from the wall, causing the glass frames to shatter upon impact with the marble floor. Using a blade, they carefully cut the canvases from their stretchers. They also took down a sizable Rembrandt self-portrait oil painting from the wall but left it leaning against a cabinet. Investigators believe the thieves may have deemed it too large to transport, possibly because it was painted on wood rather than canvas like the others. Instead, they opted to take a small postage stamp-sized self-portrait etching by Rembrandt, displayed below the larger portrait. On the right side of the room, they removed Landscape with Obelisk and The Concert from their frames. The last piece taken from the room was an ancient Chinese Jiu. At 1:51 a.m., while one of the thieves continued to work in the Dutch room, the other made his way to a narrow hallway known as the Short Gallery at the opposite end of the second floor. Both soon found themselves in the Short Gallery, where they initiated the process of removing screws from a frame that held a Napoleonic flag, presumably with the intention of stealing it. However, it appeared that they abandoned this endeavor, as some screws remained untouched, and they ultimately took only the exposed eagle finial situated atop the flagpole. They also seized 5 sketches by Degas from the same room. The final piece taken was Chez Tortoni, which had been displayed in the Blue Room on the first floor. Notably, the museum's motion detectors did not register any movement within the Blue Room during the time the thieves were inside the building. The only recorded footsteps in the room that night belonged to Abath, during his earlier patrol. As they prepared to make their exit, the thieves checked on the guards once more and inquired about their well-being. Subsequently, they entered the security director's office, where they confiscated the video cassettes containing evidence of their entry captured by the closed-circuit cameras, as well as the printouts from the motion detection equipment. The movement data was also stored on a hard drive, which remained untouched. The frame for Chez Tortoni was left on the security director's desk. Following this, the thieves proceeded to remove the stolen artwork from the museum. The side entrance doors were first opened at 2:40 a.m. and then again for the final time at 2:45 a.m. The entire robbery took 81 minutes. The next shift of guards arrived later in the morning and grew concerned when they were unable to establish contact with anyone inside the museum for admission. They contacted the security director, who entered the building using his keys and discovered an empty watch desk. The security director promptly alerted the police, who conducted a search of the museum and found the guards still bound in the basement. A total of 13 artworks were stolen during the heist. In 1990, the FBI estimated the value of the stolen art at $200 million, a figure that was increased to $500 million by 2000. In the late 2000s, some art dealers speculated that the collective value of the stolen artwork could be as high as $600 million. This incident is regarded as the most valuable museum robbery in history. The most valuable pieces were taken from the Dutch Room, including The Concert by Dutch artist Vermeer, a masterpiece of which only 34 paintings are attributed to him. This painting alone accounts for half of the total stolen art's value, which was estimated at $250 million in 2015. Experts consider The Concert to be potentially the most valuable stolen object in the world. In the same room, the thieves targeted works by Dutch painter Rembrandt. This included The Storm on the Sea of Galilee, his only seascape and the most valuable of the pieces stolen that night, estimated at around $140 million. Other Rembrandt works taken were A Lady and Gentleman in Black, and a small postage stamp-sized self-portrait etching, which had been previously stolen and returned in 1970. The thieves may have taken Landscape with Obelisk, under the belief that it was a Rembrandt. It had long been attributed to him until it was quietly credited to his pupil Govert Flink a few years prior to the heist. The final item removed from the Dutch Room was a bronze GU, approximately 10 inches in height, traditionally used for serving wine in ancient China. Dating back to the Shang dynasty in the 12th century BC, its estimated value is several $1,000s. In the short gallery, 5 sketches by the French artist Edgar Degas were stolen. These sketches were relatively small, each on paper less than a square foot in size, created with pencils, inks, washes, and charcoal. They had considerably less value compared to the other stolen works, with a combined worth of under $100,000. Also taken was a 10-inch tall, 25 centimeters, French imperial eagle finial from the corner of a framed flag for Napoleon's Imperial Guard. A reward of $100,000 has been offered for information leading to the return of the finial alone, as it possibly appeared to be made of gold to the thieves. Chez Tortoni, by the French painter Edouard Manet, was taken from the Blue Room, and it was the sole item taken from the first floor. The diverse selection of stolen items has perplexed experts. While some of the paintings were highly valuable, the thieves disregarded other valuable works by artists like Raphael, Botticelli, and Michelangelo, leaving them undisturbed. Instead, they chose to take relatively less valuable items such as the GU and finial. Moreover, the thieves did not venture onto the third floor where Titian's The Rape of Europa hung, even though it is among the most valuable paintings in the city. The peculiar choice of works in the rough treatment of the artwork suggests to investigators that the thieves were not specialists commissioned to steal specific works. Due to Gardner's will, which dictated that nothing in her collection should be moved, the empty frames for the stolen paintings remain in their respective places in the museum, serving as placeholders in the hope of their eventual return. Because of the museum's financial constraints and the absence of an insurance policy, the director sought assistance from auction houses Sotheby's and Christie's to offer a $1 million reward within 3 days. This reward was increased to $5 million in 1997, and in 2017, it was doubled to $10 million with an expiration date set for the year's end. Following a substantial public response with numerous tips, this reward was extended. Notably, this is the largest bounty ever provided by a private institution and is offered for information that leads directly to the recovery of all of their items in good condition. Federal prosecutors have stated that anyone who willingly returns the items will not be prosecuted. Furthermore, the statute of limitations expired in 1995, meaning that the thieves and any accomplices cannot be prosecuted for the theft. The FBI assumed immediate control of the case due to concerns that the stolen artwork could potentially cross state lines. Investigators have characterized this case as unique due to the absence of substantial physical evidence. It remains uncertain whether the thieves left any DNA evidence at the scene. While fingerprints and footprints were discovered at the museum, it could not be definitively determined whether they belonged to the thieves or museum employees. Over the years, the FBI has conducted DNA analysis as advancements in the field have progressed. However, some of the evidence has been misplaced within the agency's records. Descriptions from the guards and witnesses in the street depict one of the thieves as approximately 5 feet 9 inches, 1.75 meters, to 5 feet 10 inches, 1.78 meters, tall, in his late 30s, with a medium build. The other thief is described as 6 feet 0 inches, 1.83 meters, to 6 feet 1 inch, 1.85 meters, tall, in his early 30s, with a heavier build. One of the security guards, Rick Abath, came under investigation early on due to his suspicious behavior on the night of the theft. During his patrol, Abath briefly opened and closed a side door, a gesture that some believed could have been a signal to the thieves waiting outside. Abath asserted to authorities that he routinely opened and closed the door to confirm that it was properly secured. However, a colleague of Abath suggested to the media that if he had indeed been opening the door as part of his routine, supervisors would have noticed this through their computer printouts and intervened to stop the behavior. Suspicion has also centered on the museum's motion detectors, as they did not register any movement in the Blue Room, where Chez Tortoni was displayed, during the 81 minutes the thieves were inside the museum. The only footprints recorded in the room that night were Abath's during his security rounds. A security consultant reviewed the motion detector equipment several weeks after the theft and determined that it was functioning correctly. Abath maintains his innocence, and an FBI agent overseeing the case in its early stages concluded that the guards were too inept and unwise to have carried out the crime. In 2015, the FBI released security footage from the museum on the night before the theft, showing Abath allowing an unidentified man into the museum to converse at the security desk. Abath informed investigators that he could not recall the incident or identify the man, and the FBI sought the public's assistance. Several former museum guards came forward and identified the stranger as the museum's deputy security chief. Whitey Bulger, a powerful crime boss in Boston during that era, led the Winter Hill Gang. He denied any involvement and, in fact, dispatched his associates to identify the culprits because the robbery occurred in his territory, and he expected to receive a tribute. FBI agent Thomas McShane investigated Bulger to ascertain his potential involvement. McShane considered that Bulger's close connections with the Boston police might explain how the thieves acquired genuine police uniforms are arranged for real police officers to execute the heist. Bulger also had ties to the Irish Republican Army, IRA. McShane noted that triggering the fire alarm before the heist was a distinctive calling card of the IRA and its rival, the Ulster Volunteer Force, UVF. Both organizations had operatives in Boston during that time and had previously demonstrated their ability to organize art thefts. However, McShane's examination of Bulger and the IRA failed to yield any evidence linking them to the theft. According to Charlie Hill, a retired art and antiquities investigator for Scotland Yard, it is likely that Bulger gave the stolen Gardner works to the IRA, and they are now probably in Ireland. In 1994, the museum's director, Anne Hawley, received an anonymous letter from an individual who claimed to be acting as a mediator in an attempt to facilitate the return of the stolen artwork. The writer professed to have no knowledge of the thieves' identities and explained that the theft had initially been orchestrated to secure a reduction in a prison sentence. However, with the opportunity for such a reduction having passed, there was no longer an incentive to retain the artwork, and they expressed a desire to negotiate its return. The writer disclosed that the stolen art was currently being held in a non-common law country, with climate-controlled conditions. They sought immunity for themselves and all parties involved, along with a sum of $2.6 million in exchange for the return of the artwork, which would be transferred to an offshore bank account concurrently with the art's handover. To signal their willingness to engage in negotiations, the writer instructed the museum to publish a coded message in the Boston Globe. In an effort to validate their credibility, the writer conveyed information known only to the museum and the FBI at that time. Hawley regarded this as a significant lead and promptly contacted the FBI, who, in turn, reached out to the Boston Globe to publish the specified coded message in the May 1, 1994, edition. Several days later, Hawley received a second letter from the same writer, acknowledging the museum's interest in negotiating. However, they expressed growing apprehension due to what they perceived as an extensive investigation by federal and state authorities aimed at identifying them. Consequently, the writer conveyed the need for additional time to evaluate their options, although no further communication occurred between them and Hawley. Brian McDevitt, a known con artist from Boston, had attempted to rob the Hyde collection in Glens Falls, New York, in 1981. He had disguised himself as a FedEx driver, carried handcuffs and duct tape, and had plotted to steal a Rembrandt. McDevitt also had a penchant for flags and shared similarities with the larger of the Gardner robbery suspects, except for his thinning red hair. These parallels intrigued the FBI, leading to an interview with McDevitt in late 1990. McDevitt adamantly denied any involvement and declined to undergo a polygraph test. The FBI conducted fingerprint analysis, which did not yield a match to any prints found at the crime scene. McDevitt later relocated to California and used his deceptive skills to penetrate the television and film writing industry. He passed away in 2004. In March 2013, the FBI disclosed significant progress in their investigation. They reported that they had identified the thieves with a high degree of confidence and believed them to be associated with a criminal organization operating in the Mid-Atlantic and New England regions. The FBI expressed a similar level of confidence that the stolen artwork had been transported to Connecticut and Philadelphia in the years following the theft, with an attempted sale in Philadelphia in 2002. However, their knowledge of the events subsequent to that point was limited, and they appealed to the public for assistance in locating and returning the stolen art. In 2015, the FBI stated that both of the thieves had passed away. Although they did not publicly reveal the individuals' identities, sources familiar with the investigation indicated that they had ties to a gang in Dorchester. This gang was loyal to Boston Mafia boss Frank Salim and conducted their operations from an automotive repair shop managed by the criminal Carmelo Merlino. It's possible that associates of Carmelo Merlino's gang became aware of the vulnerabilities of the museum after gangster Louis Royce conducted surveillance on it as early as 1981. Royce had developed plans with an associate to employ smoke bombs and create chaos in the galleries. In 1982, when undercover FBI agents were investigating Royce and his associates for an unrelated art theft, they discovered the gang's interest in robbing the Gardner Museum and alerted the museum about the planned heist. It's worth noting that Royce was incarcerated at the time the actual robbery took place. Royce had shared his plans with others and suspected that his associate Stephen Rossetti may have ordered the robbery or passed the information to someone else. Members affiliated with the Merlino gang, including Robert Guarente and Manchester, Connecticut, gangster Robert Gentile, were linked to this case. Guarente passed away from cancer in 2004, but his widow, Eileen, informed the FBI in 2010 that her husband had once owned some of the stolen paintings. She asserted that, in the early 2000s, when her husband fell ill with cancer, he entrusted the paintings to Gentile for safekeeping. However, Gentile vehemently denied these allegations, claiming he was never in possession of the artwork and had no knowledge of their whereabouts. In 2012, federal authorities indicted Gentile on drug charges, presumably in an effort to compel him to provide information regarding the stolen Gardner works. Gentile underwent a polygraph test, which indicated deception when he denied any knowledge of the theft or the location of the artwork. Gentile maintained his innocence and requested a retest. During the subsequent test, he disclosed that Eileen had once shown him the missing Rembrandt self-portrait, and the polygraph indicated that he was telling the truth. Gentile's lawyer believed that the presence of numerous federal agents during the tests may have affected the accuracy of Gentile's statements and suggested a smaller meeting to encourage him to speak more candidly. During this more private encounter, Gentile reiterated that he had no information to share. A few days later, the FBI executed a search warrant at Gentile's residence in Manchester. In the backyard shed, they discovered a concealed compartment beneath a false floor, but it was empty. Gentile's son explained that the hidden space had flooded a few years earlier, and his father had expressed frustration about whatever had been stored there. In the basement, the FBI uncovered a copy of the Boston Herald from March 1990 reporting on the theft, along with a piece of paper outlining the potential black market values for each stolen piece. However, no definitive evidence was found to confirm that Gentile had ever been in possession of the stolen artwork. Gentile was sentenced to 30 months in prison on drug charges. Throughout his time in prison, he did not choose to disclose any information about the theft, which could have led to a reduced sentence or his release. After his release, he spoke with investigative reporter Stephen Kurkjian, alleging that he had been framed by the FBI. Gentile explained the detrimental impact of his imprisonment on his financial situation and personal life. He further asserted that the list found in his basement had been compiled by a criminal attempting to negotiate the return of the stolen art through Guarente and had contacted Gentile as an intermediary. When questioned about the contents of the concealed ditch in his yard, Gentile could not recall but suggested it might have contained small motors. David Turner was another individual associated with Carmelo Merlino. In 1992, the FBI initiated an investigation into Turner when a source informed them that Turner had potential access to the stolen Gardner Museum paintings. Around the same time, Merlino was apprehended for cocaine trafficking and offered to cooperate with authorities by promising to return the stolen artwork in exchange for a reduced prison sentence. Merlino requested Turner's assistance in locating the paintings, but Turner failed to retrieve them, although he heard rumors that they might be located in a South Boston church. Another associate who was arrested in a drug-related operation provided information about Turner's involvement in multiple burglaries but did not mention his connection to the Gardner heist. Through conversations with Merlino following his release from prison in the mid-1990s, authorities concluded that Merlino himself did not have direct access to the stolen artwork but might have been able to negotiate for their return. Despite his claims of innocence, the FBI has suspected that Turner may have been one of the thieves. Evidence indicates that he traveled to Florida to pick up a cocaine order just days before the heist, and credit card records suggest he remained in Florida on the night of the robbery. However, some investigators believe that this trip to Florida might have been an attempt by Turner to establish an alibi. The FBI believes that the other thief was likely George Reisfelder, a friend and associate of Merlino who died in July 1991. No clues were discovered in Reisfelder's apartment or the residences of friends and relatives. Still, his siblings recall that there was a painting similar to Shea Tortoni in his bedroom. Investigators believe that Reisfelder bore a resemblance to the slimmer individual depicted in the police sketches. In 1999, the FBI arrested Turner, Merlino, Rossetti, and other individuals in a sting operation as they were planning to rob a Loomis Fargo vault. During questioning, the FBI informed Turner that they had information linking him to the Gardner robbery and offered to release him if he provided information about the stolen paintings. Turner claimed that he did not know who had stolen the paintings or where they were hidden. In his 2001 trial, Turner argued entrapment, contending that the FBI allowed the Loomis Fargo plot to proceed as a means to pressure him for information about the Gardner paintings. The jury found him guilty, and he was subsequently incarcerated. Turner was acquainted with Gentile through Guarente, and in 2010, he wrote a letter to Gentile requesting his help in recovering the stolen Gardner paintings. In collaboration with the FBI, Gentile spoke with Turner's former girlfriend, who conveyed Turner's desire for Gentile to communicate with two of his ex-convict friends in Boston. The FBI sought Gentile's assistance in meeting these individuals and sending an undercover agent along with him, but Gentile declined further cooperation. Turner was released from prison in November 2019, 1 month after Rossetti. Unfortunately, Merlino passed away while in prison in 2005. Criminal Bobby Donati was murdered in 1991 during a gang conflict within the Patriarca crime family. His involvement in the Gardner theft was brought to light when notorious New England art thief Miles J. Connor Jr. spoke with authorities. Although Connor was incarcerated at the time of the heist, he believed that Donati and criminal David Houghton were the masterminds behind the theft. Connor had previously collaborated with Donati in art heists and claimed that the two had conducted surveillance on the Gardner Museum, with Donati expressing particular interest in the finial. Connor also asserted that Houghton visited him in jail after the heist and informed him that he and Donati had organized the theft and intended to use the stolen paintings to secure Connor's release from prison. This strategy might have been borrowed from Connor himself, as he had returned stolen art in the past to reduce his sentences. Despite the fact that Donati's and Houghton's physical descriptions did not align with the witness accounts, Connor suggested that they may have hired lower-level gang members to carry out the robbery. Tragically, Donati was murdered within 2 years of the heist, while Houghton passed away due to an illness during the same period. Connor offered to assist investigators in recovering the stolen Gardner works in exchange for the museum's posted reward and his release. However, investigators did not comply with Connor's demands due to a lack of concrete evidence. He proposed that they speak with criminal and antiques dealer William P. Youngworth. Following Miles J. Connor Jr.'s lead, the FBI initiated an investigation into William P. Youngworth and conducted raids on his residences and antique store properties in the 1990s. These raids attracted the interest of journalist Tom Mashberg, who began engaging with Youngworth in 1997 regarding the Gardner theft. In August 1997, Youngworth contacted Mashberg and indicated that he possessed evidence that could facilitate the return of the stolen Gardner paintings under specific conditions. That evening, Youngworth picked up Mashberg from the Boston Herald offices and drove him to a warehouse located in Red Hook, Brooklyn. Youngworth guided Mashberg into a storage unit containing several large cylinder tubes. He extracted one painting from its tube, unfurled it, and displayed it to Mashberg using a flashlight. The painting bore a striking resemblance to the storm on the Sea of Galilee, as Mashberg perceived it. He observed cracking along the canvas, the edges of the painting matched the descriptions provided by the museum, and he identified Rembrandt's signature on the ship's rudder. Mashberg penned an article about this experience for the Boston Herald, making efforts to obscure Youngworth's identity and the painting's exact location. In his report, Mashberg mentioned an informant, presumably Youngworth, who claimed that the heist involved 5 individuals and identified 2 of them. Donati as one of the robbers and Houghton as the individual responsible for relocating the artwork to a safe house. Several months later, the FBI identified the warehouse's location and conducted a raid, but no paintings were discovered. There are disputes concerning the authenticity of Youngworth's claims and the legitimacy of the painting shown to Mashberg. Youngworth provided Mashberg with paint chips, and federal authorities confirmed that these chips dated back to Rembrandt's era, although they did not correspond to the oils used for the storm on the Sea of Galilee. Questions were also raised about Mashberg's depiction of the painting as being unfurled, since the stolen painting was coated with a heavy varnish, making it difficult to roll. Following Mashberg's article, federal authorities and the museum commenced negotiations with Youngworth. However, Youngworth made the negotiation process challenging and demanded full immunity for himself and the release of Miles J. Connor Jr. from jail. The authorities remained skeptical of Youngworth's credibility and offered only partial immunity. The U.S. attorney overseeing the case eventually halted discussions with Youngworth unless he could provide more reliable evidence of his access to the Gardner works. Youngworth subsequently provided a vial of paint chips purportedly from the storm on the Sea of Galilee and 25 color photographs of the painting along with a lady and gentleman in black. A joint statement issued by the museum and federal investigators confirmed that the chips did not originate from the stolen Rembrandts. However, they were determined to be from 17th-century paintings and could potentially belong to the concert. In 2014, investigative journalist Stephen Kirkjian reached out to Vincent Ferrara, a gangster who held a superior position to Bobby Donati during the gang war, to inquire whether he possessed any information related to the Gardner Museum theft. A response came from an associate of Ferrara, disputing the FBI's suspicions regarding the Merlino gang's involvement and instead suggesting that Bobby Donati had masterminded the robbery. The caller conveyed that about 3 months prior to the heist, Donati visited Ferrara in jail after Ferrara had been charged with murder. During this visit, Donati informed Ferrara that he was planning to execute an action that would secure Ferrara's release from prison. Following the Gardner theft, Donati visited Ferrara once more and confirmed his participation in the robbery. Donati allegedly disclosed that he had concealed the stolen artwork and intended to initiate negotiations for Ferrara's freedom after the heat of the investigation had subsided. Nevertheless, these negotiations never materialized due to Donati's subsequent murder. Kirkjian speculated that Donati's motivation for orchestrating Ferrara's release was to have Ferrara's protection during the gang war. A friend of Robert Guarente, another individual associated with the gang, supported the theory that Donati had orchestrated the robbery. According to the friend, Donati had provided paintings to Guarente out of concern for his own safety. Donati and Guarente were known to be close friends and were observed together at a social club in Revere shortly before the heist, carrying a bag of police uniforms. As we conclude our documentary, it's evident that the Gardner theft remains one of the most audacious and enigmatic art crimes in history. 13 irreplaceable masterpieces vanished into the shadows that fateful night in 1990, and despite tireless efforts, they have yet to return to the hallowed walls of the museum. Over the years, various theories and suspects have emerged, each shedding light on the intricate puzzle surrounding the stolen artwork. From the Merlino gang to Bobby Donati's alleged involvement, it's important to remember that, ultimately, we're on a quest for justice and the safe return of these priceless cultural treasures. The empty frames that still hang in the Gardner Museum serve as a poignant reminder of what was lost that night. The director's plea for the return of the works, along with the staggering reward offered, continues to echo through the years. Despite the many leads, theories, and individuals who've crossed our path, the Gardner masterpieces remain shrouded in uncertainty. Whether hidden away in some secret location or lost to the ages, their fate is a mystery that endures. The story of the Gardner Museum heist is a testament to the enduring allure of art and the unwavering determination of those who refuse to let the memory of these stolen masterpieces fade away. While our documentary has brought us closer to understanding the events of that night, the final chapter of this captivating tale remains to be written. The search for the stolen masterpieces goes on, a testament to the enduring power of art and the human spirit's quest for resolution. Thank you for joining us on this journey through art, crime, and the relentless pursuit of truth.